a Navy SEAL, I had to confront fear through practice, through iteration, through training. We can convert the energy of fear into excitement, readiness, discipline, right?
I love fear, and why do I love fear? Because it's the thread that allows me to recognize where inwardly I need to grow. When we talk about taking agency of our narrative, that's a part of that. When we talk about understanding truly who we are and allowing ourselves to make those decisions of how we want to live and having the courage to do something outside of quote unquote the norm. You know, there was an amazing mystic that I came across, and I was like, how does one conquer fear? What is it? And her answer was that.
Welcome to the Mark Divine Show, where the journey to greatness begins with this listen. Hoo-yah. And thank you for being here. As I said, wonderful to have you here in person.
It's a pleasure, really.
Making the big trek down from LA.
Oh, it's a massive trek. Yeah.
Shall we start with a gratitude practice?
Let's do it.
I'm grateful for you for being my first in-person studio guest. That's incredible.
Thank you very much. I received that. And I'm extremely grateful for you, for your presence, for coming down in person. I really enjoy that. And for the folks who've been helping us bring this to life. I really appreciate the folks behind the camera.
Yeah, me as well. How do you like our new studio? If you're not watching the video, we're in our brand new studio at Jet Studios here in Encinitas. John Dahlgren has set up and Catherine have set up an incredible look and feel.
It looks beautiful. I love I love the blue, in particular, and because blue has such a blue light and blue rays are very rare in the world, supposedly. It's
a powerful color.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's
I chose colors of positivity and optimism, and white and blue have a higher vibrational quality to them. And I've got the Navy SEAL trident.
I noticed there. Yeah.
So that
it's
represents
beautiful.
Courage and discipline.
Yeah.
And I've got my book cover behind me for my next book called Uncommon. Simple Principles for an Extraordinary Life, which we're going to talk about today. Not my book, but about simple principles for an extraordinary life, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I'm excited for the conversation. And I very much admire your background, your story. It's incredibly inspiring. And it's amazing how many areas of life you've touched, from the Zen Buddhism to Navy SEALs to being a CPA. I mean, it's like...
That one doesn't seem to fit quite as well, but we'll make it work.
You know what? It does fit. It fits in this journey that I think all of us are going through to really find out who we are and why we're here, right? And that was your journey, and that is your journey.
That is. I read a great quote yesterday from one of my teachers, now deceased, a guy named Nisargadatta Maharaj, and he said that the purpose of life is living.
That's beautiful.
Right? So everyone's like fretting about purpose and what they're supposed to do in the world, and really what they're supposed to do is live their life fully.
I completely agree.
But that's a practice.
It's
because
a hard one.
We're conditioned to live life by someone else's rules.
Absolutely.
Right? And so to live life by your own rules requires deep self-awareness.
I completely agree with you. And I think you had a podcast recently, actually, or a guest who talked about, taking control or agency over those narratives. And those narratives actually filter in so many elements of our lives, right? I mean, even from the way we dress, it says a narrative, to how we spend our time, to who we spend it with. All of these are narratives that we have in our lives. So yeah, it definitely requires a lot of self-awareness to pull those back.
Yeah. Well, I want to get back into how we can shift those narratives and rewrite the stories, but let's talk about your story. What was your living of life?
Yeah, I was born and raised New Hope, Pennsylvania. It's about 20-30 minutes away from Princeton, New Jersey, across the river there. From a young age, actually, when I was 4, I went to my dad and I said, "Hey, Dad, I think I want to be a prophet when I grow up." And I thought that was the best job.
Prophet.
Yeah, I was like, they're changing people's lives. There's a transcendental connection. Et cetera. And he's like, "I'm sorry, son, that's,
that job's taken."
Yeah, it's gone. It's unavailable. Choose the next best thing, whatever you like.
It doesn't pay very well either.
That's true.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I had this zeal to make a difference inwardly as well as outwardly. And so when I was 9, I had this idea to leverage genetic therapy to cure AIDS. And because I was really into medicine, I would just voraciously read.
At 9,
yeah,
you had an idea for a genetic therapy to cure AIDS. Mm-hmm. That's not common.
I guess not. No.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Most kids are hunting for their first skateboard.
Yeah. Yeah, I just felt compelled to somehow make a difference in the world, and I really despised HIV. And I'll tell you why, because the way it introduces itself to the body, it says I'm a friend, and then it gets into the DNA, and then it just basically destroys the cell. And so there's a hypocrisy to it. And I said I really despise hypocrisy, and so that in particular I wanted to tackle. And so I then spent the next 5 years writing letters to PhD labs across the country, saying, "Hey, I'm this 9-year-old or whatever kid, and I have this idea. Would you talk to me? I want to study this idea in your lab." The answer was frequently no. It was until high school where I got into a PhD lab, and I spent 2 summers there working, and then I realized, Lord, I do not want to spend my life in a lab. Next 10 years doing pipetting and figuring this out. So during that time, I also found a lot of issues actually in the world around me. So I went to a very interesting school. It was a homogeneous neighborhood. Very, I have to say, very blessed, privileged high school. We had 2 textbooks for every student. We got one at the school and then one at home, so we don't have to hurt our backs, God forbid.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
And
a private school?
No, it was a public school. Phenomenal public school. And then, what we would do is nearly every other year, we would throw out the old edition because we get new editions every single year. So, I, despite, having this desire for...
Because they had to upgrade the programming every year.
Of course. Of course, every edition makes a difference. Come on.
They had to rewrite history a little bit more.
Oh, my God. Biology.
They had to rewrite biology.
Anatomy,
awesome.
you name it.
Right.
I then started rerouting books from our school to other schools. And that was the genesis of the Bring on the Books Foundation, which ended up rerouting 95,000 books across the country from similar schools.
Books that weren't going to get used, you put them in hands that were where they were useful.
Mark, it's incredible. Like these schools that we would donate books to, they didn't have a single textbook for a child. Like, not even joking, like a single one. Like the libraries were literally bare. And so, it made all the sense to make that happen. So I was always trying to figure out things I could do to make a difference. And then that's led me today to what I'm up to today with soul and pioneering, hopefully, the future of spirituality and gratitude.
Hi, Mark Devine here from SealFit. After 2 years of development, I'm super stoked to announce the launch of SealFit supplements and our first product, SealFit Electro Greens. This is the highest quality organic greens you can find, combined with electrolytes into one powerful supplement. Take with 8 ounces of water in the morning or add to your smoothie to get your day kicked off right with the proper nutritional supplementation and hydration support. And you can also use it as a pick-me-up booster during the day or after a workout. It dissolves immediately, and believe it or not, it tastes great. I've had many testimonials already saying it's the best tasting greens that they have ever tried. So, hoo-yah, SealFitSupplements.com, or you can find it on Amazon by searching for SealFit Electro Greens. Hoo-yah. Let's do this. Divine out. That is delicious. Why did you feel the need to get an MBA?
It's a good
Which is about as far away from entrepreneurism as you can imagine. I have an MBA, and it was absolutely useless for me in terms of, anything to do with starting and running a small business.
There's validity to that. I'll hear you. I don't know the NYU program as well as the Stanford program.
To be fair, it was 1985 to 89, and so it was all big business process. And, they didn't have entrepreneurship back then.
It's funny you mentioned that. So
Nor leadership, right?
Yeah.
So now they have entrepreneurship and leadership.
Of course. Actually, that's what attracted me to Stanford's program. So I was actually forced into it in some ways.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was forced into it. And my friend of mine.
Someone made you go.
Someone made me. Yeah, pretty much. I actually was. It's actually funny. I thought I was going to go the Masters of Public Policy route. I was at Georgetown. I was doing a government degree. Then I was at Princeton doing a fellowship. And at the fellowship, I was voted most likely to go to Goldman Sachs. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a really bad thing. I'll let viewers decide what that says about me. But I had this entrepreneurial spirit, and they're like, listen, we don't think you're necessarily a fit for public policy, but maybe you should look at Stanford. And at that point, I had an experience. I was, volunteering at the White House. I worked with senators. I had experiences with local government. And also nonprofit through the Bring on the Books Foundation. And I realized in every sector, there was a constituency. There was the donor base, the voters that we're targeting. But with business, everyone's a consumer. So if I want to change the lives of, really expand my impact, let me start at that common denominator. And so my friend was, saying, hey, I'm visiting DC and I'm going to this Stanford admin event. You got to join with me. I'm like, oh God, you serious? Like, I don't feel like going all the way up there, but I love you. Fine, I'll come up. So I sat there reluctantly, and I was, 20 at the time, 21. And I felt so out of place. But the way, the admissions director, Derek Bolton, the way he sold Stanford, I said, if I want to change the world, I got to go here. Because they were all about, I think, a lot of things that we talk about, right? Is that through knowing yourself, you can be a more powerful, more compelling, more inspiring leader. How can you inspire others to follow you versus compelling them to follow you or to be inspired by you? And that's what led me. I applied, I got in, and that's how I got to Stanford Business School. And you would have loved the program. I think you would. There's a class called...
Maybe in a parallel life I'll go.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you've done it all already, really. But, they have a class there called interpersonal dynamics, or touchy-feely is the... Mm-hmm. And so you have a group of individuals, I think about 9 individuals, will sit around and they'll talk about really talk about nothing, but eventually it goes down to how other people come across from each other. And so it's like, well, when you do this, you make me feel this way. And when you do that, you make me feel that way. And then you start learning about yourself from other perspectives. And one may say, how does that have anything to do with, the gap method and financial statements? And what that has to do is with leadership.
Right. The first part of that statement rang true to me, where you sit around and talk about nothing.
Yeah. It was so frustrating.
I remember a class I took at USD. I was at their doctoral program in leadership back in 2000, 2001-ish. I didn't finish because I got mobilized to go to Iraq.
Yeah, I read that.
And when I was in Iraq, I, made some decisions. One was to develop leaders and to not be an academic. So I left the program. But anyways, one of the classes we took was an intercession class, and it was, I forget the name of the class, but it was all based on something called the Tavistock method. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating. I think you would appreciate this. We all came into this kind of amphitheater room, and we sat down, and we just sat and we waited.
Yeah.
Like we waited expectantly. Okay, where is the teacher? What's the class about? What's the schedule? Where's the content?
Yeah.
And there was
Nothing.
none of that.
None of it, yeah.
Absolutely just complete void.
Oh, yeah.
And so the whole point was to see what patterns arise. And so the military guy gets up and says, okay, well, no one's in charge. I guess I'll take charge. And then, the activist says, who put you in charge? Right?
Yeah.
Who elected you God for the day?
Yeah.
And then it all broke down from there.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then we had to rebuild from the ashes. It was just fascinating.
It was exactly like that, actually. So, and it was very nerve-wracking for me because no one would say anything. Like, we'd sit around in a circle and they just look at each other.
Right. Just waiting. Who's going to speak first?
Yeah. It was like 2 hours.
You watch your mind wanting to fill that void.
Well,
right?
I just spoke up. I said, all right, if you guys are going to be all shy, I'm going to just say something, and get everyone to say something. Because come on.
So you were playing your role.
Oh, absolutely. I was playing my role. That's why we said the military leader guy. I'm not the military leader, but I definitely said something.
You wanted to be the leader. Creating the space, you don't need a class. You don't need to spend $150,000 to go to Harvard or Stanford MBA to create the space for that type of self-awareness to emerge. One of my favorite quotes, a guy named Punjab said, sitting in silence is the most important thing. Don't waste time not doing it. Mm. And so we, as Westerners, have this, we're trained.
We are.
To be focused on action, to be doing, to be performing.
Absolutely.
Putting points on the board.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all objective reality, and we completely deny the subjective reality that is experienced in silence and stillness. I think one of my missions is to bring that balance back. The yin and the yang, right? Yang is all action-oriented. Do, build, talk, to know and to know more, right? This craving for knowledge as if that's going to make a difference. And it's all heading in one direction, which is outward and away from your truth.
I completely agree. I know for me, there was always this, and I'm sure so many others resonate, whereas it always feels like the next step,
the next is grasping, striving.
Exactly, right? And, I think young people these days in particular, I say like I'm 450 years old, but it's like,
You too?
yeah, I mean, I'm for sure. By tomorrow I'll be 480, Mark. Trust me, it just pops up. You have no idea. But it's like you have to do well in SATs, then you get to a good college, then from college, like figure out like, what job you're gonna get after you graduate, then what job, you're gonna meet my life partner, and now, okay, I check that off, like check.
Not only that, but while you're doing those things, you have to do 27 other things
Yeah.
to feel like you're still being productive.
Exactly.
It's insane.
And
So stop doing that.
I agree. So I burnt out. I was in my, what was I, like my sophomore year. So I was just getting to be a junior, and I totally broke down. And I remember I was like, I cannot continue trying to just say, I have to get an A, I have to get an A, I have to get an A. Let me learn what the material for the class so well that I happen to get an A. Let me focus it that way. And that helped me a lot more. But, I'll say it's still a constant tension of how do you balance what is real. Like you talked about that quote already of living is our purpose, right? Well, a lot of times there's that FOMO, right? And now then it becomes this spiritual endeavor, I would say, to how do we conquer fear, right? And I could go on forever about
No,
that.
let's double click on that. Because as a Navy SEAL, I had to confront fear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misperceptions about fear. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, I think it comes from, personally, what I believe. It comes from a lack of trust of the divine. And I believe, this is...
I'm glad you trust me.
Yeah, I
Trust
do.
in the divine.
I do.
Sorry, that was a bad joke.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It's good.
Cosmic joke.
Yeah, actually trust me, capital M. There was an amazing mystic that I came across, and she's just incredible. So I had a constant quest to understand fear. So one time I was about to get my internship for, I was looking for internships in my MBA year, and I was so afraid. And that night I had a dream. I remember that night I had a dream, and God said to me, "Hey, Sohale, do you want me to open up this veil of what the devil is doing when you're afraid?" I said, "Yeah, sure, why not? Let's see what's going on." And I just hear this laughter, like this joy, as if the devil's like, I don't have to do anything with Sohale. Let him go his way. Let him be all fearful. He's good to go for my end. And so I met this mystic, and I asked, I was like, how does one conquer fear? What is it? And so she broke down fear into two categories, which was fear of not getting what we need and fear of losing what we have. Right. So obviously, both make sense. Fear of not getting what I need. Am I going to get into the good university or scale this business or whatever it may be, or meet the life partner, whatever the case may be? Am I going to get those needs met, or am I going to lose, what I've accumulated? And her answer was that I don't have anything. There's nothing to lose because I have nothing. Everything is for someone else. I know some people, when I was growing up, I always was afraid to say God or divine or anything, because I'd be perceived as if I'm stupid, because like, wow, you don't believe in science, but you believe in, something that transcends you, which I thought was ridiculous. But, and so I always had this phrase I'd say, oops, I said God. Oops, whoopsies, and even in business school, I remember one classmate was kind of making fun of me, like, oh, wow, you believe like you're. But candidly, Mark, if I be totally honest and real with you, I haven't found any other answer that connects, the union, the transcendental union with the God here, and that meeting point of reality, which is divinity, which frees us from these types of things that we just talked about fear.
That's nice. I'll give you my Navy SEAL perspective. Fear exists, primordial. It's part of the ego structure. Yeah. And so fear is not to be feared. It's to be confronted. And it's meant to be tamed in a sense. And we do that through training and through self-awareness and through, inching closer to that which we fear. And for most, ultimately, it's like existential fear of loss of the body. Yeah. And so you keep creeping closer to that line as a SEAL through practice, through iteration, through training, until the energy of fear, we can convert it. It's like that crucible transformation process, the alchemy that happens, and you convert the energy of fear into excitement.
Yeah.
into readiness, into discipline, right? And you can insert your own word there, but that the energy, which is just this very, very powerful energy of that survival instinct, then becomes action-oriented energy for mission success for the Navy SEAL. So you've got to stare the fear in the face to become intimate with it. And most people turn their back on it and try to run away, and then it chases them. So that's one perspective. The other perspective, and it really kind of links to that, is fear is resistance to life.
So good.
Fear is resistance to life. And so the more that we can let go of all of those identity structures that the ego holds on to, the more life flows through us, the less fear until it dissipates entirely.
I love that.
Which is the other way. It's like kind of coming at it the other way from your prophet sage. She said, I have nothing, therefore there's nothing to fear. And I'm suggesting is let go of everything that you think you have, and you'll find that the fear is gone.
Yeah. And that's the process for sure. And what I love about what you said, I'm going to say something a little, I love fear. I love fear. And I'll tell, and why do I love fear? Because it's the thread that allows me to recognize where inwardly I need to grow.
Yeah, it's a boundary.
Exactly.
Right? Fear is a line, like it's a red line.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting. Like you walk up to that red line and you peek over and you're like, that's curious.
Yeah, let me learn more.
What's on the other side
why,
of that?
and why, right?
And the other side is the devil laughing at you. Going, don't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
like,
hilarious.
and then you realize, it's like, oh, there's nothing really there.
There's nothing there.
Or, it was a memory from childhood. And so something that
It was a coiled rope that
yeah,
you
exactly.
mistook as a snake.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. False evidence appearing real, or a false expectation, which is even more, useful acronym. Like everyone has these false expectations based upon their programming or some sort of desire for an outcome. And if you're attached to that outcome, you're going to experience fear. So this is very close to your definition. You're going to experience fear of either not getting it or losing it.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
So if you let go of expectations and your attachment to outcomes, then the fear also dissipates.
Yeah. But, the heart, and I'd love your thoughts on this too, and I'm sure I have thoughts, is how do we balance, because we are human beings and we have, so to speak, goals, right? In this world, how do we balance goals versus surrendering, right? And I feel like that's the practice.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
Hey, maybe you like a pair of good jeans like I do. I love a good pair of jeans, especially when they're worn out and they fit like a glove. But it's tough to find them, and they're super uncomfortable until they do. And oftentimes, by the time they fit like a glove, they don't look so great. That's why I'm super stoked to find Duer, D-U-E-R jeans, and to have them as a sponsor for the Mark Divine Show. Duer jeans are incredible. They fit extremely well. They're extremely comfortable as well, right out of the box. And you can wear them for almost any occasions. They dress up or down. I use them to go out for dinner, and I also train in them. They're that comfortable. These are made for everyday living, all sorts of things you can do with these jeans. They're not your typical jeans. Their denim features 360-degree stretch, made from technical fibers that keep you cool and dry. And they're sustainably made with, believe it or not, plant-based materials. So check them out at their flagship store, either in LA or Denver, or shopduer.com, and use my URL, shopduer.com/divine, D-I-V-I-N-E, to get 20% off your first order. Again, shopduer, that's shopduer.com/divine. Go there, check it out, get 20% off your first order. You're going to love these jeans. They're the most desired jeans now in the country. I love them, and I know you'll too.
Exactly.
I mean, that's our practice. I think ultimately it's the master practice. And the principle of Wei Wu Wei describes this very well. It's action, no action, action or no actor, action without the action. And so what this is meaning is getting the ego out of the way, stop taking ownership of the action. Allow the action to arise spontaneously. This is a great practice to try, is stop. Stop doing anything and see if you can do nothing. You can't possibly do nothing because even stopping doing anything is doing something.
Exactly.
But what it reveals is that which can't not be done. Everything that can't not be done will happen, regardless of whether your ego takes ownership of it or not. That's way, way, way. Action without the actor. So if you stop doing anything that isn't that which can't not be done, then you're getting really close to the truth because your ego's out of the way.
It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And when I hear that, it's funny. I was laughing because I was on the way when I was driving here. Literally, that's what was an insight for me as I was thinking about these things. It's like it's going to happen anyways. If I'm going to be pushing it or not pushing it or etc.
Right. I'm right there with you. So you've got this mental idea, this construct of what this show is going to be in the interview and how you're going to perform, and you're probably like doing the visualization and the mental preparation, the rehearsal, and all of that is making you more anxious.
Yeah.
And so you said stop.
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen. What will be, will be.
We'll have fun. It's great.
Words will come out of our mouths.
Yeah, exactly.
Have fun with them.
Yeah, I mean 100%. And what is the point really, right? And I think that's the main takeaway. And for me though, it's also been a realization, a spiritual kind of inquiry as to how can I have more trust with divinity or with the transcendent or with being. And the answer that I've heard recently, for myself at least, is that we've already been here, meaning it's already been here. Going to your point about stop silence, when we're being silent, we're realizing, what has gotten us to be here today? The whole time it's been here. Since we were born, it's been here, right?
Since before you were born, it's been here.
Exactly. So it's that recognition of that. And that I really do believe takes discipline, and it takes gratitude in particular.
Right.
Right.
Another source of fear is false perceptions based on flawed memory. And memory is, it's a useful servant, but it could be an awful slave lord. And people who live by memory or believe their memory is sacrosanct are really trapped in suffering, because memory it's very fickle and it's changing, right? And it's never based on truth, right? So you have a perception of an experience that is perceived through an extraordinarily narrow aperture, right? And then locked in memory as if it's everything. It's missing 100% of the context.
Oh, absolutely.
99.999%, but that 0.0001% is that small aperture, which is your understanding at that point in time that memory occurred. And then by the way, most memories will dissipate. It's only the ones that are really, really powerful that stick with us. And we thread kind of false memories in between, just like the mind will fill the gaps, right?
Yeah.
In the field of vision. And people rest on that as if it's gospel, as if it's their life. And it's not. So when I reflect back to my childhood, one of my really cool practices is I will have a memory that, is strong enough that I can go back to that memory and ask, what's the same between now and then? And what's the same is awareness. The same awareness that I'm experiencing now threaded that experience. It wasn't the memory, right?
It's amazing you say that.
So that's that just helpful pointers, right? Like a Japanese koan or a Zen koan to get you to recognize what's really going on.
Yeah.
We have the form and the formless, and people focus all on the form, thinking that's the only thing. And the formless is equally important because it's what allows the form to happen, or it's coexistent with the formless.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Again, I was driving up here. It's just so funny because I think, I was prepped from, as I was driving up here, which was, I felt compelled to put a very old childhood song of mine on. And why I put it on, I said, I want to evoke the feeling. I remember I played violin for 20 years, and I would come from orchestra, and I would be in the bus, and I had this yellow Sony CD player, and I put it on and had this song, and I'd love it, and the sun was rising at that point because it was so early orchestra rehearsal, and I had just such joy. The sun is setting, and the song is very romantic, actually, and so it reminded this like lover in my mind. As a kid, I was like, I fall in love, and this, that type of thing. So I felt I felt compelled. I was like, let me put it on, and I think what I hear from you, or how it lands for me, is that there's a quintessence to this memory. And this quintessence was love, like to be loved and to recognize being loved. And And then I started asking myself, well, what does that really mean? And a voice in my head or my heart said to me, well, it means to be very small. And I said, well, what does that mean? Is it for the ego to really be almost to give, if there was a container for the ego to be very small so the rest of it can be filled with, you would probably say, the formless.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right.
That reminds me of another quote from, I think, Kafir. He says, everyone is aware of the single drop merging into the ocean, but it's rare to be aware of the ocean merging into a single drop.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So that's what you just said.
Yeah.
In other words,
that's a beautiful way of a quote to.
You feel very small. Like you could imagine your awareness point being infinitesimally small point of consciousness that includes everything. Mm-hmm. It's like a black hole. Yeah. The black hole is infinite. It'll take everything down to the very smallest, but simultaneously it expands everything into everything. This is the quantum reality that we live in. I know you use that term, quantum linguistics. Tell me about that. I'm curious.
Yeah, it's
because I have a sense of what you mean, but I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, really at the core of it is, so I'll take a step back as we get into it, right? So the key really is I had a coach 3 years ago, and basically we analyzed my language. Like, how do I speak? And a lot of this way
it wasn't Larry Yatch, was it?
Was it?
Was it Larry Yatch?
No.
Okay.
It was actually a CEO of a company.
He's got a program based on linguistics, which is fascinating.
Okay.
He's a Navy SEAL friend of mine too.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we basically it was all scarcity based.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling everything in the framing of what it is not. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So, I can't do this, or maybe I can do that, or I don't know that, or framing things more scarcity oriented.
Right.
Versus abundant oriented as to what they are. And I think quantum linguistics is a really nice way of saying basically, like, how do we frame our language towards the idea of infinite possibility?
I love that. Yeah.
Right. And what I had to do is rewire the way I speak in order to align myself with that abundant mentality. And when in that process of rewiring, I started uncovering is the wrong word, actually. Revealing what are the areas in my childhood or scarcity-oriented mindset that I have, for example, that I need to reframe. It changed my life immensely. But here's the scary part of this. As we move throughout life, that type of language, the scarcity-oriented language, is everywhere. Everywhere. You hear it in songs, you see it on billboards or advertisements and movies and scripts, etc. Once you become aware of it, it's like, oh, why are we going towards, the absence of light? Let's go towards more of the light of what things really are, what the nature of reality really is. And that's quantum linguistics.
Yeah. I love that. There's so much to say and unpack that, but everything is training.
Yeah.
And so all of that content, that's training. And I believe it's a deliberate training system to keep people in scarcity and in fear and in some negative vibratory quality, which makes them much easier. Civilization needs to control that. Yeah. And so if everyone is operating at the level of, pure love and light, then there's no need for government.
And capitalism would probably...
Capitalism would fray at the seams and fly apart.
Exactly.
We live in a sharing economy. We see examples of that popping up all over the place.
What's something to be noted, which is fascinating, because we can go to the skies and we can also go down to conversion metrics of on what gets folks to... Yeah. And I've had a lot of conversations with leaders about this who've actually done a lot of testing on whether it's on ads or product development and whatever it is. And they say that what we find is the scarcity mindset compels folks to take an action.
Fear of missing out.
Exactly.
Right.
And so, even myself as someone who's, building this, this vision of gratitude and leveraging the power of technology to do that, I have to be cognizant of, okay, are we using FOMO here?
I have had,
to get
I've had to let go of copywriters like, no, we're just not going to do this. Right. And business won't be as big. I have some teammates, Navy SEALs, who are have massive followings, and they're using those techniques, whether they know it or not.
Yeah. They're
leveraging fear-based language.
It is a double-edged sword, because one could say, well, you know what? The devil's advocate argument could be to say, listen, we want to at least bring them in. And so then when we're there, we can make that
Trojan
change.
horse.
Yeah, or meet them where they're at. And I think that's everyone, each person's individual, decision. But there is this cyclical cycle of reinforcement that's happening, which is that, well, someone's afraid. Okay, we're going to serve them to where they're at. Okay, we're going to reinforce the fear. And then, again, we're going to serve them at their at and go on and on and on.
So how do we, like, using gratitude, how do we break out of that? And I also want to tie this to linguistics because it's so important.
Yes.
It's how we talk to ourselves, especially.
So it's funny, a lot of folks struggle to actually build a gratitude habit. Just to take a step back, the research in gratitude is absolutely incredible. And I'm sure you already know this. Obviously, the main thing is that it makes you happier, more joy, more contentment, reduces anxiety, burnout. A lot of folks don't know that it improves your quality of sleep. It boosts your immune system. It even increases your ability to deal with pain. And so we get it. Like, it's great. And the truth, the ugly truth maybe, is that so many of us struggle to build actually a gratitude habit. And a lot of that comes down to, habit formation. And so what many, many people do is they buy a journal and they write in that journal and they do it for like a few days, what they're grateful for. And, then they forget about it and they move on with their lives.
You talk about a gratitude practice, the way most people think about it and the way it's taught is it should be getting out a journal and writing down things I'm grateful for. But to me, that's pretty rudimentary.
I agree 100%.
Gratitude is found in the moments, right?
Yeah.
In the cracks, and being able to just appreciate the awesomeness of everything that goes into like this moment.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift.
It's a mindset shift.
That's essentially what it is. And then I would even say it's in a realignment with your soul.
It's a shift to a higher level of consciousness.
Exactly.
The practice is to cement that in so you don't backslide.
Exactly.
Or if you get triggered into something less than gratitude or, those higher levels of consciousness, then you can quickly get yourself back into the positive territory. And this goes back to language, right? So the language of less than gratitude it's going to be negative. It's going to be language that brackets and closes in.
An absence of life or scarcity oriented. The issue with that is the denial of the truth, right? Which is that in every moment, there is full possibilities, truly. And so when we're speaking, and Brene Brown talks about gratitude having to be an observable practice, meaning like write it down, etc. And that's to reinforce this point that you're making, which is that the way we speak in gratitude is speaking, basically, I would say, alignment with that which inspired all that is, in alignment with living. And so when we say, I'm grateful for this, even for the littlest thing, like, the feeling of this pen in my hand, right? Or the feeling of the jacket or whatever it may be, that is a step towards light and aligning your mind with really, truly your soul.
I love it. It reminds me of Dr. Hawkins' admonition to find courage as the gateway from the negative realms to the positive consciousness. So if you can, and courage is heart, right? Cour, the French word cour is heart. So courage means acting from heart or with heart. Gratitude is the outcome, right? Of courage. Because on the other side of courage, from fear, from pride, from jealousy, from whatever, shame, we're grateful that we're not there. And then, like you said, then you're opening up into what he calls power versus the force. Force is the negative energy, and force needs to be controlled. Whereas courage is that doorway. And the other side of courage, you open up into power. And power is that infinite possibilities. Everything's possible. And consciousness will still have, evolutionary tendencies through different stages. And he was able to kind of measure those through his extraordinary work, actually. If you're listening, if you hadn't read Dr. David Hawkins' work, then please do.
I mean, what I'd say is that at a certain point, I would contend that at that stage of power, the illusory nature of force becomes illuminated, right? Because it's our perception that it is force. And it's brilliant. And this conversation is, what I love, it's thousands of years old that we're having here. Because there was a moment, and actually there's a really profound story where, Moses wanted to essentially elevate his consciousness, This is after,
After he brought the 15 commandments down and broke one of the tablets.
yeah, after all of that. So God says, yes, there's this individual, or he gets, a sign that there's an individual who's very, very enlightened, and he meets this individual. And the individual says, okay, you can hang out, you can spend time with me, hang out with me. I don't know if you'll be patient, but Moses said, no, I'm good to go. Don't worry. So they go, he hangs out with them, and they go to a specific, I believe, the enlightened individual kills a child. Mm-hmm. Moses is like, how could you kill this child? Like, he's a kid. What are you doing? You committed a sin, right? I mean, and he's like, I told you couldn't bear with me. Mm-hmm. And he ends up going through all these different scenarios that in our eyes would be totally ridiculous, mm-hmm. And then he starts revealing and said, well, because that child was going to end up becoming a very bad human being and like destroying people's lives. And it was revealed that he was going to go this way, and like his parents were good people and we didn't want them to suffer and whatever. So we decided to send him to God faster than like later on or whatever it is. And so anyways, the point is our perception is just a data point of one, right? There's a lot of other possibilities beyond what we see.
Yeah, there's infinite number of reasons for everything to happen. The idea of linear cause and effect is a construct of the mind, and it actually is one of the causes of suffering because we take such responsibility for everything. And this flies in the face of most leadership, like take responsibility, and from the perspective of where that's coming from for social order and whatnot, and for even living a good life, it does make sense. But from the unitive perspective, it's nonsensical.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the part of when we talk about taking agency of our narrative. That's a part of that. When we talk about I don't even want to say redefining, but understanding truly who we are and allowing ourselves to make those decisions of how we want to live, whether it's from going from a CPA to, going and studying Zen Buddhism, right? And having the courage to do something outside of quote unquote the norm, right? Which is totally boring, by the way.
Foundational conditioning. Yeah. Certainly wouldn't be having this conversation if I hadn't broken free from that storyline.
For sure. And probably the joy and inner bliss that you experience is probably way more than, mm-hmm. the guy at Arthur Anderson. No offense to him.
I was there, by the way.
I know. That's why I mentioned it. There's a reason why I mentioned that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But it does take courage. It takes courage to say, I'm going to kind of do something a bit differently than what I've been told to do, because you feel like you're going to drown,
Yeah. And the courage is also kind of back to where we started this conversation, is to be comfortable sitting in silence, to allow what that is to reveal itself instead of charging like a bull willy-nilly into the next thing that maybe looks shiny on TikTok, but
exactly,
it's not the right thing for you. I have a whole chapter in my book about that. Kokoro Mountain, merging heart and mind in actions and finding your purpose or your dharma. The calling is an archetypal urge, right? It's the karmic energy of why we're on this plane and why we've come back, and that energy is played out. So this is how karma and dharma really are like the yin and yang of one principle. Karma is the energy that says, okay, we're here. This is why. It infuses your life and it sends you off in a direction. And dharma is basically getting clear about that and fulfilling that.
And I think that's courage for our time. I think in different times, what the definition, what does it mean to be courageous, was probably different. Maybe action was needed more than contemplation. And now we need more contemplation. But here's the thing that I deal with.
At a global level. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
All the action is leading us down the toilet bowl in terms of our culture and the violence.
Oh, absolutely.
So everyone needs to take a breath and just pause and just stop. Can you imagine just a day of stopping everything?
Yeah.
We saw a brief hint of that in COVID, right? In the beginning of COVID. Remember the picture where the, from the town in India, you could see the Himalayas for the first time?
Yeah, no pollution.
No pollution. Now, of course, the context for why that happened was dark. Yeah. But if we all stopped for good, right?
Absolutely.
For gratitude, a day of gratitude, where we just stop everything, stop all action, stop all judgments. We should start that, the day of gratitude.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I would say, though,
national holiday or global holiday. We'll declare it a global holiday.
We should. I'm sure there is a World Gratitude Day. But I would say that we should, the sad thing, though, I would say, and not sad thing, but the opportunity, let's reframe it. It's the opportunity, is that For many folks, it can be a daily, just a one-day thing. But how can we infuse and weave and thread that every day, right? Or at least weekly. And that's what I struggle. So 3 years ago, I had a friend and she said to me, we should do gratitude practice, habit together. We're going to keep each other accountability buddies. Mark, I'm embarrassed to say this. I did it for 5 days. 5 days. That's it. And then I moved on. I'm busy. I got things to do. I'm running around, And so what I would do is I would write an email to myself. I'd send an email to myself. And I'd write what I'm grateful for. And I'd come back in my inbox 3 days later. I'd reply to it, send it again, come back in my inbox. We got to figure out ways.
Is that the seed for your current business?
That's the seed, yeah. And so actually it was really spontaneous because you talk about, Dharma, right? And so 3 years in, I'm part of, a lot of these support founder groups. We're talking about what works for us, et cetera. And I share, hey, this is working for me. Like, I love it. It's transformed my life because it's just been an emotional life vest in this ocean waves of life. And it's, we want to try it out. We want to use it. All right, cool. All right. So, made a hacky version for text message, analyzed the data over the 3 years where I randomly converted. Noticed that there was this decrescendo and crescendo that seemed to be, part of it. Put that in this tool, and now people get these spontaneous nudges over text message. And this was just a side project, something really I did as a hobby. My last company ends up getting acquired, and and I get the opportunity then to work on this full time after that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so now folks get spontaneous nudges over text message. They respond to what they're grateful for right in their text message. So leverage is where most people are already at.
Information is all stored in the app.
So because it's text message, it's encrypted on our database. And for folks who want more insight, we offer this is where we're using AI for good, right? Which is that we've trained this this AI based off some mystical texts that are very, very deep, yeah. And we give psychological and spiritual insights to those folks. It's actually pretty impressive. Where we basically say, here are the areas of your life where you are grateful for. Here are the areas where you could grow. And the growth areas are actually doorways to figuring out what you're fearful for. Why you don't say gratitude for these particular things. That's how it served for me. So yes, you're right. That's how it worked.
Where do I go to learn about that? Soul something?
Yeah, bringonsoul.com.
Bringonsoul.com.
Yeah, and Heart 30 for 30 days on me for people to try it out.
That's cool.
Yeah, and we need more tools that leverage the power of technology for us to dig deeper to our souls. Mm-hmm. We need it.
Well, we're at a pivotal point, not just in this podcast, but in humanity, where where these tools, like you said, AI, can be used for great good or great harm, and it will be used for both, just like any technology. Yeah, I mean, humans are facing another evolutionary moment, I think.
I agree 100%.
And so what got us here isn't going to get us there, and the answer is in the nonlinear, right? Yep. It's in the stuff we're talking about, opening up to the field of potential. And gratitude is a great doorway. Yeah. Courage is a great doorway too, but they go hand in hand, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there are some basic tenets of what works to understand and ultimately self-realize our own consciousness, capital C. I mean, it's been happening for thousands of years. Zen Buddhism has been thousands of years.
It's going to happen with or without us.
Yeah, for sure. It's illuminating the power of these geniuses, this wisdom, these fountains of wisdom to folks in this day and age. Because a lot of it has gotten, tossed aside for, there's this funny video, let me put this. There's nothing wrong with being entertained. There is something wrong about forgetting about who you are. And one of my concerns, Mark, is that we have so many resources that can be misleading to seemingly bring you towards oneness and that unit of knowledge that you mentioned. But, ultimately are another manifestation of the ego. And I think we got to be very, very careful about, our sources. And that's why what you're doing and what you're speaking of is brilliant, because I know it comes from a very sincere and pure place.
Hey, everyone, this is Mark Devine, founder of SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind. And I'm super stoked to announce that my new book, Uncommon, is due out from St. Martin's Press this summer, July 16th. And we've launched a pre-order campaign. You can learn more about that at readuncommon.com to try to get early awareness for the book, which I hope will help a lot of people, where I go and do a deep dive on the 5 mountains of personal mastery: physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and spiritual. Uncommon, simple principles for an extraordinary life. Check it out at readuncommon.com. And thank you for your support and being part of the change that you want to see in this world. Hoo-yah, divine out.
Thank you so much, Sohale. This has been a really awesome conversation.
Thank you.
We honor you,
It was
and
a blessing, really.
I'm very grateful for you. So, hoo-yah.
Me too. Thank you for.
We always end with hoo-yah. Like, that's a Navy SEAL word for me. It means we got this in gratitude.
I wish I was a Navy SEAL so I could also say too, but
Well, I've got some training that could kind of set you on that path. If
yeah,
you're
we did
open
talk
to it.
about a six-pack earlier. Thank you so much, Mark. I
Awesome.
really appreciate it. It was a pleasure.